A wild gorilla stepped out of the jungle and gently placed her newborn in a human's arms. The forest froze. No one moved. No one breathed. Why would a mother surrender her baby to a stranger? What happened next will shock even those who thought they'd seen everything. But first, let's go back to the beginning. The jungle, once vibrant with rustling leaves and distant bird calls, fell into an impossible silence. Every living thing, bird, beast, and human, seemed to hold its breath. The baby gorilla in Emily's trembling hands was impossibly small, wrapped in folds of dark, silken fur, warm and pulsing with life. Its eyes, deep and impossibly ancient, blinked up at her as if studying a forgotten friend. Emily didn't dare move. Her mind spun, trying to bridge the chasm between logic and what was unfolding. Every instinct screamed that this shouldn't be happening. Gorillas didn't surrender their young, especially not to humans, especially not willingly. But Macaulay's eyes said otherwise. The matriarch's gaze was steady, unblinking, but without aggression. There was no threat in her posture, no tension in her limbs, just quiet expectation, as though she had made a decision long before this moment arrived. A minute passed, maybe more. To Emily, time collapsed inward. All that existed was the fragile weight of that infant in her arms and the overwhelming sense that she had been chosen. For what? She didn't know. Her breath caught when the baby gave a soft, whimpering cough. Instinctively, she adjusted her hold, cradling the creature closer to her chest, the way she'd once done with her younger brother, decades ago. Macaulay's massive body shifted then, not toward aggression, but almost imperceptibly, like a sigh given shape. The silver scars on her knuckles gleamed in the low morning light as she reached forward, one long arm brushing a frond aside. Her eyes scanned Emily's face with an almost human intensity. Behind Emily, someone whispered, "She's testing her." No one moved to stop it. No one could. The infant began to squirm, letting out a soft, hiccuping squeak. Emily's hand moved to steady it, her fingers brushing the matted tufts of its tiny back. And as she did, Macaulay made a sound, a low, deep hum. Not a warning, not a threat. Something closer to a lullaby. It vibrated through the ground, into Emily's bones. The jungle, for a moment longer, remained paralyzed by reverence. It wasn't fear that held them still. It was awe. Then, slowly, deliberately, Macaulay leaned forward and placed a curled leaf at Emily's feet. A peace offering, a symbol, or perhaps a key. And then she waited, again. The revelation hit Emily like a tremor through the earth. That jagged line carved across Macaulay's side wasn't just a wound, it was a message. And not from nature. Anthony hadn't spoken the words aloud. Not yet. But the truth hung heavy between them, thick as the jungle's humidity. Emily had seen the look in his eyes when he inspected the gash, the way his jaw tightened as he rose to his feet. Not an accident, not a clash with another animal. The edges of the wound were too sharp, too cruelly precise. A snare, the kind laid by poachers, rudimentary, brutal, and unforgiving. Macaulay had torn herself free, leaving more than blood behind. She had left a piece of her safety, her trust in the world, entangled in human wire. And yet, she had approached Emily. She had offered up Kia. That trust, raw, fragile, inexplicable, seemed to defy every scar humans had ever given her. The paradox hollowed Emily out. She knelt beside the matriarch that night, her fingers pressed to the damp earth while Kia nestled in her lap, rhythmically suckling from the makeshift bottle a ranger had cobbled together from a hydration tube and powdered formula. Macaulay, though weak, kept a watchful eye. Her breaths were shallow, flecked with pain, but her posture remained resolute. Her baby was safe, for now. Emily could not sleep. The jungle sounds that once thrilled her now filled her with dread. A distant crack of a branch could mean a leopard. The rustle of leaves could betray a poacher returning to check his traps. Her own heartbeat was a drumbeat of guilt and fury. She whispered to the baby through the night, "You shouldn't be here. Not like this. Not in my arms. You should be curled against her, not me." But Kia only whimpered, the small sound barely more than a breath. Anthony approached just before dawn. His voice was grave, barely above a murmur. "She's losing blood. We've done what we can. If the vet isn't here by tomorrow." He didn't finish. Emily didn't ask what would happen next. She already knew. But what twisted her deeper than fear was this. Even in agony, Macaulay had chosen to trust a member of the species that had done this to her. That was the wound Emily couldn't stop seeing, the one no medicine could treat. It was deeper than the flesh, and it was hers now too. Under the dense emerald canopy of the windy, impenetrable forest, sunlight filtered like stained glass through a cathedral of leaves, dappling Emily's face as she sat cross-legged on the mossy ground. In her lap, Kia stirred, releasing a soft, breathy cry. Not quite human, not fully wild. Emily stroked the infant's downy back with trembling fingers, every movement delicate, reverent, as though touching a wound that wasn't hers, but felt carved into her nonetheless. Macaulay's body lay stretched nearby on a bed of banana leaves, her chest rising in slow, deliberate heaves as the sedative wore off. Her eyes fluttered open briefly, dull with exhaustion. Her baby was gone from her arms, yet she did not rise, did not protest. The bond had frayed in those agonizing days of pain and fear. Something primal had fractured, shifted. Emily had watched it happen in slow motion. The soft groans of a mother searching, the flinching when Kia reached out, the final look that said, "It's no longer mine to give." The vet team called it a trauma response, common in primates after a severe injury. But to Emily it felt like a quiet surrender, a mourning that refused to be expressed in sound. The knowledge haunted her. Yes, Macaulay lived, but something inside her had died the moment that steel wire tore flesh from her side and trust from her heart. And Emily, for all her good intentions, had become the unchosen inheritor of a role that should never have left Macaulay's grasp. Later that evening, back at the ranger station, the decision was made official. Emily would stay in Uganda, at the sanctuary, to raise Kia as a surrogate until she was strong enough to join other young gorillas in a transitional nursery. No one questioned the bond. They had all seen it. Emily had become the baby's anchor, her warmth, her breath, her heartbeat. But love, Emily had learned, was no anesthetic for guilt. It coexisted with it, braided tight like vines around a fallen tree. Outside the forest, the world erupted. News channels aired the footage in loops, Macaulay extending her arms, Emily reaching back. Words like miracle, divine trust, mother of the jungle flashed across headlines. Donations surged. Wildlife blogs and influencers turned Emily into a reluctant symbol. But in the hush of the sanctuary at night, there were no cameras. Only the hush of crickets, the gentle rustling of leaves, and Kia's small, searching breaths against her chest. And in that darkness, Emily cried, not for the honor, not for the attention, but for the mother gorilla who had handed her child away in silence, and for a world that only noticed when the pain became spectacle. The grove lay hushed beneath a slate-colored sky, the air thick with the promise of rain. Shadows drifted between tall fig trees, their roots clawing the earth like memories refusing to be buried. Emily moved slowly, Kia perched on her hip, one tiny arm wrapped loosely around her shoulder. Each footfall felt like trespassing on something sacred. She could hear her own breath, sharp, uneven, as she stepped beyond the bamboo fence and into the inner enclosure. Macaulay was there. She sat in profile, framed by vines and low shrubs, back curved in a posture that was neither rest nor alertness, more like waiting. Her fur had grown over the scar, but the wound was still visible in the way she moved, cautious, almost contemplative. Time had dulled the pain, but not erased it. Kia let out a soft hoot. Macaulay turned. The transformation was instantaneous and irreversible. Her head lifted, her nostrils flared. Recognition flickered not in her body, but in her eyes. Two pools of midnight that suddenly flooded with light. She stood without hesitation, muscles rippling beneath dark fur, and walked forward. No ranger intervened. No command was given. Emily didn't move. She couldn't. Macaulay stopped just inches away, and with a grace born of instinct and memory, she extended her arms. Kia shifted against Emily's chest, then pushed away, awkward and curious, reaching out with both hands. For a suspended second, the world ceased to spin. Then she was gone from Emily's arms, reclaimed by the mother who had once surrendered her. Macaulay pulled the infant close, burying her face in the soft fur at the back of Kia's neck. No cry, no sound, just the primal silence of reunion. She held her baby as though she had never let her go. Emily's knees gave way, and she sank to the ground, sobs rising from a place deeper than memory. 6 months of sleepless nights, mosquito-bitten skin, aching limbs, and relentless grief dissolved into tears that wouldn't stop. But they weren't tears of loss. They were release. No one spoke. The rangers stood at a respectful distance, reverent. Cameras remained still. Not one dared shatter the moment. Somewhere above, a bird called out, a long, plaintive trill that seemed to echo the ancient language of the forest. The wind stirred the leaves, rustling like whispered thanks. Macaulay turned once, locking eyes with Emily. Not fear, not farewell, recognition. And just like that, the line between species thinned, revealing, in that fragile, wordless gaze, the truth Emily had always believed, that love is not limited by language, that hope is not the privilege of humans, and that even in the wildest corners of the world, a mother never forgets.